Welcome back, Chaos fans, to another edition of Conversational Chaos. This is your host, the Rage Monster. I'm here with Jason in the studio today. And this is episode number 25, so that means...
Special guest
today. And this morning we have Martin in the studio. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations on 25 episodes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're rolling now.
Yeah, we're on the go. Almost a year now.
Does anyone know about this?
We try to let people know.
Yeah, we're getting a good fair amount. Actually, the last couple of weeks we've had a surprisingly large number of downloads per week, which is...
Is that family and friends?
Some, but it's a lot of it's organic. We get hits from all over the world, really.
Yeah.
All over the world?
Poland, Latvia, Germany, Australia, New Zealand,
Get out.
China. No, it's true.
Where
It's
were
totally
we?
true.
We had a bunch of hits from somewhere this week.
Oh,
Netherlands or something.
Netherlands. Yeah, like
Big
8
following
hits.
in Netherlands.
And
Just
do
this
these people actually post comments?
Well, that's another story.
We get a few comments here and there, but most of the comments we get are from people we generally know. We do have a crazy Irishman who lives in Kentucky who contacts us all the time.
I just wonder what someone in Latvia is looking for when they download your show. What's the title of it?
Conversational Chaos.
Maybe these are all anarchists out there.
It could very well be anarchists listening to the show. But this is unfortunately family friendly, so they get very surprised, I'm sure, when they start listening to the show.
Do.
You want to hit Martin with his
It's
10 questions?
It's a whole different spin on where
I know.
demographic is.
There's going to be a lot of chuckling today because that's pretty funny.
All right, so we always start with 10 questions.
Okay.
They're usually one-word answers. There's no wrong answer.
All
right. In your closet, would you more likely have steel-toed boots or cowboy boots?
Steel-toed boots.
Would you like to visit Asia or Africa next?
Asia.
Would you choose crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Crunch.
Are
They're progressively difficult. Progressively more difficult.
Are fairies good or evil?
Fairies.
How did I know this one was coming up
all
today?
All kinds of interpretations of that, aren't there? They're both.
Okay, good. Would you choose to have lunch with Han Solo or Indiana Jones?
Indiana Jones.
Have you ridden a bus in the last 5 years?
No.
What color is your automobile?
Black.
What is the best time of day?
When I wake up.
Do you drink tea with milk or cream?
Milk and sugar. No, milk. Just plain milk. What am I saying?
If your pants have belt loops, should you always wear a belt?
No.
Right? Those are really good questions. I loved the Indiana Jones Han Solo question.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would totally go for Indiana Jones. I like Han Solo, but...
He might shoot you.
He might. Well, I'm not Greedo, but I suppose.
What bit speed are you recording at? 44?
I honestly, I don't know what...
44.1 kilohertz.
Is
that a good speed?
Quality.
Oh, good.
Well, people like to record at, because of the Nyquist theorem, they like to do 88.2.
Well,
so you actually can get CD quality because you need to have twice the frequency to get.
That's true, yeah.
To remake the waveform. So if you really wanted to get something as high as 44.1, but that's why they chose 44.1 in the beginning, was because that covered, they thought, the audio band to 22.
Oh, that makes sense.
But some people argue that no, like dogs, we can subliminally hear things much higher.
Yeah, sense it somehow.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a silly question. Where are you from originally, Martin?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
That explains
That's
the
not
accent.
what I would have guessed.
Well, I always say that because you would expect to say Northern England or Scotland, where I've lived both places, but our family moved to Pittsburgh, which is really where I grew up.
Oh, wow. How old were you when you moved to Pittsburgh?
10.
Okay. How long did you live there?
I lived in Pittsburgh till I was 23 or 24. And I went to university in Scotland while I was in Pittsburgh.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to Edinburgh University.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the there were no jobs for Greek majors. So
is that what you majored in?
And I wound up working for a bricklayer in Pittsburgh. And
that's a big difference.
And became unemployed because of the recession in the 70s.
Oh.
I was laid off twice.
Oh, wow.
So I spent like 2 years working maybe 3 months a year and just collecting unemployment the rest of the time. The second time it happened, my brother said, you shouldn't waste this again. You should go back to school.
Oh.
So I went back to school for EE.
Oh, wow. That's a completely different...
Yeah, that's a really, really different path.
Well, I realized I should go to school for something that you can get a job in. I was thinking of civil engineering. That's what I really wanted to do. But back in the 1970s, the recession was so bad that they were talking about only 17 to 20% of civil engineers in that graduating class were getting jobs.
Oh, wow.
That's not good.
That wasn't good. Whereas now it's really good for civil engineers.
Yeah.
But back then it was terrible. And people always gave you these horror stories like, do you want to be designing clover leaves the rest of your life?
No, that is the answer to that.
So that was why I wound up here, EE.
Wow. Bricklaying, that's hard work, though.
And I was a laborer. I still have back pains from it.
I bet. Was it just from the day-to-day wear and tear on your back?
Well,
or was it...
these were the days when you had a hod.
I don't know what a hod is.
It's like a funnel shape, almost a funnel. It's like a V-shaped box.
Oh, that's you put your mortar in it, right?
Yes. And
you
take it and you shoot the hod. If you're doing a foundation, they can't be bothered putting up scaffolds for the basement foundation. So they just have a couple of planks for the bricklayers to get up and lay the block. And they put the block in the back, but there's no room for the laborers. So the laborer has to shoot the hod, throw it up, and get the mud into the pan up there on the scaffold. And that's how I twisted my back, trying to throw these things in mud.
Oh, wow.
I always found that difficult.
I imagine that doesn't sound fun.
There were a couple of things that I never really mastered. The hod I got pretty good at that, but the other one was throwing brick.
It's amazing how you can see these guys, they can throw a whole pile of brick. It is absolutely astonishing to see them do this. So
black guys would take 2 brick and throw them 4 stories up in the air, and they would just come to you perfectly.
Really?
Yeah, and they stayed together.
Stay together.
It's like, how do they do that?
When I would do it, I'd be like, incoming, and all over the place. This thing would be spinning and going end over end. It's an art.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Well, bricklaying in general is an art.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a skilled job for sure, but just like anything else,
is.
Any of those jobs, especially when you get into like finished carpentry and stuff, that's really arty. You have to have a different kind of brain to be able to kind of see around all the rough portions of everything and have to make everything look pretty. Especially like the facades of buildings, obviously, are always the best looking parts.
Yeah, I guess you're
so
right.
You have to be really particular and you have to be really arty, I guess, to make everything look really good. That is hard work. My brother worked for a stonemason for a summer, and I think he stopped doing it not because the labor was hard. He stopped doing it because he really didn't like snakes very much.
And there were snakes in the stone pile.
Every time he would go to the stone pile, there was always snakes in the stone pile, so he just hated that. So he didn't want to do that anymore, so he stopped doing that. But he's a mechanical engineer.
Where did you grow up?
Upstate New York, northeastern New York, northeast of Albany, on the Vermont border. Go Indians!
So when you studied Greek history for a while?
Well, when you take Greek, you literally read everything in Greek. So the Greeks began everything. So the one thing we didn't do is Greek. We didn't do Pythagoras, the math.
Okay.
Didn't do Archimedes. But we did history. When you did history, you read Thucydides or Xenophon, who wrote in Greek.
Oh, wow.
Thucydides was considered really the pinnacle of your Greek studies, because Thucydides wrote with these very long, on the one hand or on the other, paragraphs. He was describing the Spartans fighting the Athenians, and so there was always pluses to the Spartans, but negatives. Yes, we should be friends with the Spartans, but sooner or later they're going to tell us what to do and ruin our democracy, and they're run by a bunch of generals. So we're not going to like that. And in these paragraphs, you'd have to make sure you correctly interpreted the opening lines, and then all the tenses of the verbs, you had to be sure, were they talking about the future or something that had happened. So Thucydides was extremely difficult, and you got that in your final years of Greek.
Oh, wow.
And you got philosophy with Plato.
The fascinating thing about Greek is that it hasn't changed much.
No.
In the last several thousand years.
Oh.
Yeah, it's you can still find. That's how the Rosetta Stone, which is the stone that basically allowed archaeologists to interpret Egyptian hieroglyphics, because the hieroglyphics it was lost, so people didn't know what the symbols meant or how to read them. But the Rosetta Stone was written in 3 languages. It was the same decree from one of the pharaohs in 3 languages. It was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, it was ancient Greek, and the third one was what, Martin, do you know?
Aramaic or something?
Yeah, it could have been Aramaic. Yeah, it was some other third language, but the fact that Greek hasn't changed much, they were able to read and interpret this Greek easily, and then they were able to apply that to the ancient Egyptian. So that's how we were able to understand how these hieroglyphs, what they actually meant. So before that, they didn't know. They had no idea until they had found the Rosetta Stone.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The big problem with Greek is, if you go over there and you look at things, you'll see just all these capital Greek letters. They didn't break up words. They didn't break up sentences. So when you got an original Greek text, you're looking at all the letters just running on continuously. So
and they're all capitals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you really, when you pick up an ancient Greek text, a published book, you'll see references all through it to these old English and German and French guys from the 1700s and the 1800s. And they're the guys who went through the original scroll and places it's missing the text. So they are the ones who said, we think it should be divided here, that they were really making up a future subjunctive clause, and the words that are missing should be this, because all these things got damaged and stuff. There were no perfect copies and stuff. So you'll see in a copy of Plato or Homer footnotes on every page as to here's what this one scholar thought the reading should be, here's what another thought it should be.
Oh, wow. I've kind of heard that. I didn't know why, though. That's interesting, too.
Just like biblical.
Just like biblical, kind of the same.
Yeah. Huh. That's why there's so many different versions of the Bible, is because there are different interpretations.
Right.
Of the way that, putting in text where text didn't belong to kind of convey an idea that they didn't believe translated, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I went the Latin route. I studied Latin for 3 years. And that was fun, I guess. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. But it's completely dead. It's a dead language. But the only good thing about it is that so many English words have Latin roots.
So you can figure out.
Yeah, you can figure out a lot of stuff.
Oh.
Where words come from. And the same thing with Spanish, Italian, obviously. English, Spanish, Italian, French, all the Romance languages all come from Latin roots. So even though I didn't study Spanish in school, I can actually understand a bit of Spanish just from knowing a bit of Latin.
Right.
It's kind of cool like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. French, same way. Originally, Martin, you were born in England.
Yes, Northern England.
You were born in Manchester?
No, Burnley.
Oh, man, that negates that question.
But we lived just outside Manchester. We moved like a year later to southern Manchester, and I went to Moss Side 3 or 4 times to see Manchester play. I was very, very into soccer when I was a kid.
Okay, so wait, before you go any further, Manchester United or Manchester City?
Manchester United, of course.
That's what I figured you were going to say. I was just curious.
I was a fan when George Best was playing and Nobby Stiles. These are names that have all been erased by time. They weren't number one back then, but they were always up in the top 5. So.
Yeah.
When was the last time Man U, if ever, has been relegated? Yeah, I have no idea. I don't think this, not that I know of in the last 25 years. They've never been relegated. They've always been near the top.
We had the town we lived in, south of Manchester, was actually called Altrincham, and they had a semi-professional team that made it as far as one year when I was living there. They got to play like a 3rd division team in the FA Cup. The FA Cup is open to everyone, and it begins like very early in the season with all the really teams around the country playing to see who gets a chance to play one of the 4 division teams. And Altrincham made it this year and got to play in the FA Cup against one of the 3rd division teams pretty high up. I went to see parts of that game on the way home from school, and they lost. But it was incredible to see all these people taking the day off work.
Oh, wow. That's pretty neat to see the city support something.
It was a tiny city. It was
a
tiny little stadium.
Oh, wow.
How many people did the stadium fit? A couple thousand?
Oh, less than that. Probably 500 maybe.
Wow, that's really small.
There was no parking. It was one grandstand with 2 openings on the street side. That grandstand was where you stood if you were paying to get in. But you could go in the other entrances that was open to fields in the back. You didn't have to pay. If it rained, you were out in the rain. That was awesome.
Which it tends to do a fair amount in England.
Yeah, I've heard.
It was on the way to my school. I got to walk to and from school at 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was like a 1-mile walk. My mom would then let me spend the money on sweets.
Oh, yeah.
The bus money, yeah. That was the deal. And
That's hilarious.
Must have been 3 or 4 shops in those days along the route. Tiny little shops that had nothing but cigarettes and sweets.
Oh, yeah.
Catered to the British sweet tooth. And boy, we all stopped, As soon as school got out, there'd be like 30 kids lined up at these little shops trying to buy toffees.
That reminds me of the scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
When Charlie Bucket, who, it's really funny, it seems like that's taking place in England. Everybody has an English accent except Charlie Bucket. I don't really know why they picked an American kid as an actor for that. But yeah, like the whole beginning of that scene where he finds his golden ticket takes place in a sweet shop.
Oh.
So all the kids are buying all their candy after school, and Charlie Bucket didn't have any money, but he found money, so he was able to buy his sweets. And that's how he got his golden ticket. Before confronted by Slugworth, who turned out to not be Slugworth at all.
Who was he?
He was,
Willy's agent.
He was Willy Wonka's right-hand man at the factory, who was masquerading as Arthur Slugworth, the rival candy maker.
Huh.
Because they were trying to figure out which child was the best child. If you've ever seen that, have you ever seen the movie?
I've seen bits of it, and now this makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're trying to find out which child is the best child in the movie. And obviously, the movie's about Charlie, really. So obviously, Charlie turned out to be the best child. I'm not giving anything away here, but every child.
A girl was the other child, or?
There was 5 children. There was Augustus Gloop, he was the German kid. There was Mike TV, the American kid. There was Violet Beauregard, another American kid. There was Veruca Salt, who was the English kid whose father owned the peanut factory. And then there was Charlie Bucket.
And wasn't there a Chicago punk band called Veruca Salt?
There was, yeah. Veruca Salt was I think it was an all-girl
I think so.
punk band, from the 90s. And actually, they had some pretty good stuff. Didn't mind Veruca Salt, all right.
Good name.
So, but that's where the name came from for the band, was from the movie. After every child finds their golden ticket, they're confronted with Slugworth, who tells them, I will pay you X amount of money to give me the secret formula to the everlasting gobstopper. Willy Wonka had made this candy called the everlasting gobstopper, and Slugworth wanted the formula, so he was trying to get the kids to bring him a sample of this particular candy. And it turned out not to be Slugworth at all. They were finding out which kids were good kids by, not doing that. And so at the very end, when Charlie brings his everlasting gobstopper back and puts it on Wonka's desk, that's when Wonka knows that Charlie's the best kid.
Because the rest all sold it.
Well, because the rest were going to sell it. But Charlie was the only one who gave it back to Willy Wonka, so he wasn't tempted to do so. And that's when he knew. And that's when Willy Wonka utters one of the best movie lines ever that I've actually uttered myself to people. When people do good deeds for other people, sort of out of the blue or for whatever reason, in my head I always say this, and I've said it out loud before, but Willy Wonka says to Charlie Bucket, "So shines a good deed in a weary world." It's perfect. It's so apropos for so many things.
Now, is that the same in every version of the film?
As far as I know.
So which version do you like?
Oh, it's the Gene Wilder version from 1972. I think is when that one was released. Is that right?
What the other version is that guy?
The Johnny Depp version?
Johnny Depp. Not as good, huh?
No. It's terrible. I thought so. Sorry, Johnny. I know you're listening right now, but wasn't nearly as good as the Gene Wilder version.
And who was Gene Wilder married to?
He was married to Gilda Radner,
That's
who ended up dying of cancer, unfortunately, at a young age. She was actually quite funny.
Yeah.
I liked Gilda Radner. They did a couple of movies together back in the 80s. But he also did a movie with Steven Seagal's wife. One of Steven Seagal's ex-wives, I should say. She was also in Weird Science. Shoot, now I can't remember her name. That's really sad.
Gene Wilder did.
Gene Wilder did a movie with this woman. I can't remember what her name is. But anyway, he was a really strange guy, apparently. A friend of mine met him at the U.S. Open one year.
Gene Wilder or Steven Seagal?
Gene Wilder. Steven Seagal is apparently a strange guy, too. But Gene Wilder apparently was really kind of weird. And as he got older, he got more and more strange. Which, if you could believe that, he was kind of strange to begin with.
So what was he doing at the U.S. Open, Gene Wilder?
It was the one in New York City, the Tennis Open.
Oh,
he was there watching. Yeah, he was a New York City guy, so yeah, he was there watching. It was at it was in Flushing at I think at the World's Fairgrounds or something, wherever the U.S. Open is held. It's in Queens. But a friend of mine was there, and he ran into Gene Wilder. He talked to him for a couple of minutes, and he said he was just a strange dude. But he was also like 70 at the time. Moving on from Gene Wilder, what prompted you to take electrical engineering after?
Well, that was the one which there was 20% employment for civil engineers, but there was like 95% employment of EEs that year, so no-brainer, as they say.
Oh, wow.
And you're still at it.
Still at, well, I'm ready to retire, really. I'm going to be 63, 1957, mass always. I'm 62 now, so I'll be 63 in January. So is that when you can start retiring now, 63 if you want to?
Well, for you, we can't retire till we're 67.
Oh, that's right.
Thanks.
Yeah, isn't that great?
There's like some calculation you have to do because of the years for my generation. If you retire at 63, you're immediately collecting $1,000 a month or 12, whatever it is, $2,000 a month. So you're getting like $24,000 a year. So if you waited till 67, that's $100,000 that you will have not collected if you start retiring at 67. So it'll take you quite a while to make up the difference then at 67 to how much they give you. They give you more now if you retire at 67 than you would have got. So you're going to be getting 500 more. But to make up that 100,000, you'll have to live for another 20 years to make up that difference on the extra they're paying you. So there's really not any numerical advantage to waiting to get the larger sum, unless you're really going for the late 90s. And that's, my dad's like 92. So there's a good chance that maybe but my mom died in her 80s. So if you go between the two, it'd probably be like the late 80s. So I don't think I'm going to be able to make up the difference in just from 67 to 82 or 85. Yeah. That's 15 years. I don't think I'll make it. Well, no, I will make it up, but just. Yeah. And if I die before that, then the government's walked away with the money.
Yeah.
They walk away with it anyway, no matter what you do.
That's true.
I'm shooting for 100. I don't know about you, Jason. I don't know if I'll make it.
Well, that's what
I'm shooting
my dad's
for.
starting to lose his memory. Last time I was home, he thought that a place that we have driven to 100 times was on the left, over his left shoulder, on his right shoulder. Because we were looking right I could look out the car and look at this place. And he was convinced it was over on the other side of the road. And the car's covered with dents and stuff since the last time I've been home. I think he's having trouble with his depth perception.
He's still driving at 92?
Yes. So...
Well,
he doesn't drive any longer. My sister flew from Rhode Island to Pittsburgh to drive him and his girlfriend to... His girlfriend's, very wealthy. And
you hear what he just said?
Your father's girlfriend.
Yeah, he's
very
got a
wealthy.
girlfriend, yeah. And she's got a beachfront place. My father and this woman are together because their lives are exact parallels. Her and her husband came to Pittsburgh a year before my dad and his wife came to my mom came to Pittsburgh. Both families have a daughter called Caroline. Both families were in engineering. Her husband started national laboratory. He went around buying up laboratories.
Oh.
That did government testing for nuclear, food.
Oh, wow.
It's a wise investment.
Yeah, he bought all these different testing companies and he made them into a conglomeration. His son now runs this set of companies. And my dad was a Westinghouse manager and certainly didn't make money like these guys did, like this other family. But my dad buys stock in British companies still.
Oh, yeah?
And he still follows the British market and gets the Financial Times. And it's ridiculous, And in fact, he thinks that I'm going to keep this alive. Every time I go home, he's like, here, Martin, let me show you. And there's all these companies he's invested in Britain. He's like, you may be interested to see that I've been moving funds into blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at he spends a lot of time on these investments. In fact, what's the name of that company that handles your money for you? It's a guy's name.
Morgan Stanley?
Not Morgan Stanley.
Well, there's many.
There's many, but they've been around for ages. They've got offices in Annapolis. They've got offices all over the world. It's I don't want to say Edwin Jones. It's something like Edward Jones.
It's Edward Jones.
I think it's Edward Jones. His broker at Edward Jones says to me, I have to study when your father comes, because my dad has spreadsheets you're not making enough on this. You've got to take them out of this. And he's like, your dad's quite a character, Martin. But the two of them are now being driven by my sister to Rhode Island so that he doesn't drive,
That's a heck of a drive, too, from Pittsburgh out to Rhode Island. Yeah.
Does your sister live in Rhode Island?
Yes, she lives very close. She lives in Barrington, and beachfront place is more towards is it Newport or something.
Okay.
Somewhere out that way. So they're very close. It's a half-hour drive from our house. Yeah. So it's very convenient.
That's nice.
So my dad can go visit Doreen and still get to see his daughter and all his grandchildren. She's got 5 kids, my sister. So.
Oh, wow.
They've all just finished. All except one have got out of school. So,
on a complete side note, we've lost our intern permanently
to Rhode Island.
To Rhode Island,
yeah.
We had the Canadian. She had been our intern since the inception of the podcast, and she left. She moved to Points North. She moved up to Rhode Island, and she's not even going to listen to this, so she won't even know we're talking about her.
She might.
Maybe she might.
You derailed it. Now I don't know where I was going to go.
Sorry.
So does your dad still live in Pittsburgh?
Yes, he and Doreen live in a retirement home overlooking Oakmont Golf Course, where they have the U.S. Open occasionally.
Yeah, that's a nice course.
She lives on the side of the building that overlooks the golf course. They're a little more expensive than the apartments on the side my dad lives on, which overlooks the parking lots.
Did they meet at the apartment place?
Yes, they did.
They both moved in there too?
They both had planned on moving in there with their spouses.
Yeah.
In more parallels here. They had been looking at these places, and both couples had agreed that this was the best place out of all they'd seen.
Yeah.
They had the advantage that this place was under construction, and so they're really like condominiums within this. It's like this 4-story building with these 4 or 5-room apartments with 2 bedrooms, a living room, an office, and a kitchen / dining room. And there's like a dining room down in the main building where they provide dinner every night. And there's an on-staff medical team so that if I've fallen and I can't get up, you just hit some buzzer and they come. So they were both getting ready to move in there when my mom got liver cancer.
Oh.
Doreen's husband got liver cancer.
Oh, wow.
Both of them died within a year.
That is something else.
Doreen and George, my dad, moved into this building, and my dad told me afterwards that it was the most depressing year in his life. That after the funeral, everyone was around him, and everyone was consoling him and stuff, and then suddenly everyone goes back to their lives.
Right.
And he's now alone, not in his old house, but in this new building with these people he doesn't know. And he said, like, it was just a terrible year. And this woman, Doreen's a lot more sociable than him. They met up and have since become really good friends. But Doreen published a book, and it was so successful, they're now on their 2nd book about this retirement home.
Oh, really?
They've used the name, the author's name is like a pseudonym, and it's Octavia, and then it's some Octavia Long or Octavia Wood. The name of the building is Longwood.
Okay.
So at Christmas time, this year we got the sequel to whatever it was, Murder at Longwood.
Oh, something grim.
They have to be.
You have to have some sort of entertainment value in there.
And it's now going to have to be Duena or something, because there's only 2 left. 3 of them have got Alzheimer's and don't know who they're talking to anymore. And 3 of them are now have had injuries and are doing rehab, so can't be available. It's just a core writing team now. I had a neighbor. I used to live in Pasadena, and next door to me was this 14-acre wasteland that this family from West Virginia owned and had trailers on, 3 or 4 different trailers, and they would dig holes, deep holes, and then just suddenly start burying engine blocks.
That's not environmentally sound.
Oh my God, they were breaking every kind of law but the place was so big and so remote that no one was going to find out about it unless you were flying over the place in the helicopter filming it, And
obviously, you found out about it.
Oh yeah, I used to walk my dogs back there,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't look too kindly on that. But I was a neighbor, so they didn't chase me off with a gun, but they certainly weren't friendly about it. They kept free-range chickens, and I once had to pay them because when the chickens would sleep in my woods, I had 2 acres with a bunch of pine trees, and their chickens would come into my pine forest and sleep up in the trees while they get covered in snow and would fall out of the tree and just keep sleeping on the ground. And my black labs would get up, I'd let them out in the morning, and then one morning they'd come in and it'd been snowing all night, and there's blood on their chins, and I'm like, what the hell? And I go out, there's this trail of blood and feathers all the way back, and 5 of these chickens are half alive, they've been mauled, and the others are all up in the tree. And so
this isn't your fault. Why would you have to pay for the chickens?
Well, that was my argument. There was a lot of back and forth between us, and I chopped off their heads because it was just too painful. They were alive, and they had to be put out of their misery. And
the chickens.
Yeah, not the neighbors, the chickens.
one of the sons had 3 of my pine trees had fallen over their dirt road a year earlier. The stupid son comes over and he's like, your pine trees are blocking our road. Yeah, I'll try and cut them up. He said, well, I cut pine trees for a living. I'm like, oh, yeah? And he's got a pickup truck, and the back bed has a U in the walls of the pickup truck where it looks like a tree just came right down.
Yeah.
He landed one on his own vehicle, and I'm like, And he's like, I could cut them up myself since it's my business. And I said, well, how much would you charge me? And he's like, 3 long pine trees. He's like, $15. I'm like, $15 for what? For all 3? I'm like, all right.
Drive a hard bargain.
Yeah, go ahead. So the rest of the brothers were furious when they found out that I'd paid only $15 for these 3 trees being cut up. And when the chickens got chopped up, they wanted $5 a chicken head. So I had to pay them $25 for the 5 chickens I beheaded. So they got their money back.
Okay, now, wait a second. We got to back this story up just a little bit. You're positive it was your dogs.
Oh, yeah, there was blood all over their chins.
That doesn't mean that they killed the chickens. It means they rutted around in the chickens. How do we know a fox didn't do it?
This happened regularly. They would chase those. They'd be out there barking, and the chickens would be up the tree. And the only reason that they were able to get them this time was the snow.
Because they had fallen out of the tree. And
yeah.
The fact that he's referring to the not so smart son, so that means there was lots of other sons.
Oh yeah, there was 5 or 6 brothers, and some of them were not idiots, but the one who was the tree cutter, he was an idiot. No doubt about it. One of the smart brothers lived in this house. I'll never forget it. Literally, the refrigerator was outside. It was plugged in, but it was outside. And there was no front door. There was this rug that was nailed up in the doorway. It always amazed me that the county didn't come down. But they did have regular trailers on the lot, so I guess the brothers, some of them were into all kinds of illicit behavior. In fact, it got to be a problem. That was one of the reasons I moved was...
That's what got to be the problem?
The dirt road that went past the back of my lot became a hangout for all the little kids who were buying stuff off one of the brothers.
Oh.
And I mean, there would be 15 cars there, people drinking and partying until 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. You could hear yelling and screaming and
yeah. It's old.
Yeah, rock music, full volume. It was just, and you couldn't talk with these people. You couldn't say, "Hey, keep it down. I gotta get up and go to work tomorrow."
Yeah.
They'd throw bottles at you.
How long did you live there for?
For about 4 years. One night I'm at home, and I lived on Woods Road, which is between Early Heights Road and Mountain Road. It's a shortcut for people who know the area. You go through this Manhattan Beach, this neighborhood, and you make a few turns, and then you get on this big, long straightway, Woods Road, and you can really open it up. My dogs got hit like 3 times on that road by people driving too fast. Well, my house was right at the end of the long straightway, and one guy, I don't know how he got his speed up this high, but he managed to get off the road, and I had a chain link fence that was like 4 feet high, and he drove into the end of the chain link fence that was at the corner of the lot, and the fence got pulled out of the ground. The post that held it snapped away. The actual top pole, the pole that runs like 50 feet along the front, went through his glass. His car started tumbling into the yard. It pulled all the posts out of the ground that were on this big long pole, and the pole got bent as it kept tumbling and tumbling, and it literally ripped. When I came out of the house, there was this curve, this U-curve of that pole, the top pole, and then going through his car. And I thought it had impaled him or something. Yeah. And this car's going tick, 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 and it's upside down. And I'm looking at this like, I mean, I've been asleep, and I was just totally confused and didn't know what to do. And all these kids from the dirt road who'd been partying all come running up. And the one guy that the drug sellers, like one of the crowd, like, "Stay back, Stanley, stay back. The thing's going to blow." And I said, just going tick, 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 keep back, keep back.
It's not a bomb.
Yeah, I'd just woken up, and he's like, "Martin, you idiot." And he reaches in, and it was like the windshield.
Oh, the wipers.
And he turns, clicks that, and it stops ticking. I'm like, or an indicator. It was an indicator or something. So I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And then this kid comes crawling out, and Stanley punches him. "Oh, what'd you do this for?" And he's like, "That guy owes me $20. And he's like going at him again. And so, this was like some local kid who was known to some of the people from the...
That's not where I thought the story was going.
Oh, my God, yeah. It was quite a neighborhood.
So he just goes through an accident, gets rolled around several times, and one of his rescuers punches him in the face.
So I had to move out of there. I couldn't take it.
Right, so you were a Greek historian, double E, and ran a recording studio. Was there anything else that you've done?
I think we covered everything. Well,
the recording studio bit was actually pretty. We didn't talk about that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So,
how long did you do that for?
15 years.
Oh, wow. Did you do that in your house, or did you have
in my house, yeah.
Oh, wow. Did you build a studio in like your basement or something?
Well, I had a convenient room that had like a loft. So I put all the recording equipment in the loft, and this big room underneath, I would put the band, and it had like a sunroom off of it, which I would put the drummer in. So I could run lines out to the drummer and have him sealed with these doors, because the drums always get into everything.
Yeah.
If you've got drums in everyone's mic, it makes the drums sound distant and diffuse, and everyone wants really in your face, smacking drums. They don't like things that sound distant and reverbed by the fact that you've got this little delay. It's in the drum mics.
Okay.
But it's in the vocal mics and stuff. So
yeah.
You really have to make sure they're separate.
Well, so you had a pretty big studio then, if you could put a whole band in it.
Yes.
You can jam a lot into actually a fairly small space.
Yeah. But more than just like a closet size.
I'd say the area the band stood in was like this, and the drummer's room was more like 2 or 4 closets.
Okay. That's pretty nice size.
I spent many hours in recording studios.
Oh, really?
Over the years. Not working, but recording. I played in a band for a long time.
Oh, what instrument?
Guitar.
Cool.
Yeah.
What kind of music did you guys do?
This was the 90s, so I would say it was sort of post-grunge style. When we played gigs out, we did a lot of covers of bands like Fish and Dave Matthews Band and Rusted Root and things like that. So we played a lot of that kind of stuff. But it was a lot of fun.
I like Nirvana. That was very good.
Yeah, we actually did a couple Nirvana songs.
You didn't record on your trombone?
Never recorded with my trombone, but I did play it because we did a lot of older songs as well. Trying to think of the song off the top of my head was Coming Into Los Angeles by
Country Joe.
Yeah, Country Joe. And so I played my trombone on that when we played out. Yeah. So I did every once in a while.
Yeah.
Did play the trombone, but never recorded with it. Yeah, that was my original instrument. I was a trombone player. Migrated to guitar after a traumatic leg injury that put me on my butt for 8 months, basically.
You can't play the trombone without a leg?
No, it's just I got so bored. It's going to sound funny.
Up something else.
There's 2 things that I started doing when that happened. 2 things that I'd never really done before. One was playing the guitar. My father had a guitar at the house, and I had a little chord book, and I picked it up, and that's how I learned how to play the guitar, was just from that. And then started reading. That's how bored I got. I hated reading, unless I had to for school. I mean, I still hated it, but I never did unless I had to. But I had a few books that had been given to me over the years. I remember I was so bored. I was laid up. I couldn't go out or do anything. So I remember picking up a book one day and just started reading it. And then I liked it. And I picked up another one and I read it and I liked it, so on. And now I read all the time. But guitar was the same way. I just picked it up because I was bored.
So who's your favorite author?
That's actually a really tough question to answer, just because there are so many different genres. Well, I've read a ton of Stephen King books. I like Stephen King as an author, but I like him in a certain time frame. Earlier Stephen King books are edited a lot more. His later books, like the ones that are coming out currently, don't get edited very much. So they're gigantic. And I don't have a problem with a really big book, but it's obvious there's stuff in there that should have been boiled out during the editing process that just wasn't, because he's Stephen King, which book publisher is going to say, no, you really need to take this out. It makes the story flow better. And Stephen King's going to say, okay, I'll just use a different publisher. I mean, his books are bestsellers, before they're even released. So I like Stephen King for that genre. He actually wrote an entire series of books that I love called the Dark Tower series. That's 7.
I remember that.
7 books, and they're excellent. So for that genre, but science fiction, I really enjoy David Weber. He does a whole series of books called the Safehold series. I think it's 8 books long. I haven't finished it yet. It's been done for a couple of years, but it seems like his books got progressively larger. So I don't like to just like read in little parts. I like to be able to sit and read lots. So if I want to finish a large book, I need to have knowingly a large amount of time to be able to sit and read.
Did you read that My Brilliant Friend? That book that was...
No.
Did you read it?
No.
Did you hear about it?
No. Did you read it?
Yep.
Was it good?
Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah?
I'm actually reading a book right now that was actually written by a former Naval Academy. He was a Naval Academy graduate, former helicopter pilot in the Navy. Just wrote a book called The Coin. It's basically it's a fictional story about leadership. So apparently he taught leadership at the Naval Academy for several years. I'm in the process of reading that one right now. It's actually pretty good. It hasn't actually come out yet. I got a pre-release version of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So that'll be available on Amazon in about a month and a half.
Have you ever heard of Martin Amis, the writer? His father was Kingsley Amis, who was a comic writer.
Name's not ringing a bell.
Martin Amis has written quite a few books that are pretty good, but one of his that always sticks in my mind was like a show-off book. He did it because he wanted to show how talented he was, and it was Time's Arrow. And it's about a commandant in a German extermination camp, something like Auschwitz.
Light topic material.
And everything is done backwards. So the book begins with him getting onto a motorcycle and going back into a war zone, in a conflagration, and arriving in a place where all these people are dead, and he's bringing them all to life. He herds all these bodies into these rooms and closes all the doors, and people come out alive, and he then extracts this little pill, and all the way through it, the people are like crying afterwards, and wailing, and he's confused why, I brought them all to life, and everything in it is backwards. He goes to brush his teeth, and he's taking the toothpaste and he's putting it back into the tube, and
that's super weird.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic story. A very grim subject matter, but if you ever get a chance, read Time's Arrow, Kingsley Amis.
I'll check that one out.
Interesting.
So this is the part of the show where Jason supplies me with a story that I have never seen. And so I just have to read it. Just listen to the reactions, I guess.
It's short. It's
short. This is a short one. Starts out even funny. I am a maintenance guy for an apartment complex at a college campus. See, pretty benign, right? I was repairing an elevator control panel in one of the apartment buildings when a beautiful girl comes to the elevator. I tell her the elevator won't be working for another 5 minutes. She says she lives on the 12th floor and can wait for it so she doesn't have to take the stairs. She starts to flirt with me, asking if I'm single, saying how she didn't know this apartment had attractive maintenance guys. When I fixed the elevator, she asked me if I wanted to come up to her apartment to have some coffee. It killed me to turn her down, but I had to because they needed me immediately to fix a burst pipe in the basement of another building. 2 days later, I get a ticket to repair a broken fridge in the building with the pretty girl. The apartment is on the 12th floor. I only had one other repair job for the morning, so I had plenty of time to chat. I knew what the other repair job was going to be anyhow. It was the same jerk tenant that calls every week complaining about the most ridiculous stuff. The air conditioner rattles, the sink has a slight drip, the toaster oven takes too long to heat up. That one really made me angry because the apartments don't even come with toaster ovens. This dullard brought his own toaster oven and then tried to get me to fix it. I told him I fixed it, but really all I did was cook 2 of his Pop-Tarts in it and eat them. This buffoon only had the unfrosted brown sugar ones. Those taste like poop, but I hate them because the guy's a jerk.
Where did you find this?
What the heck? What about the pretty girl? That's the end of the story? Oh, good Lord.
That's great. You've got real talent, Jason.
Well, he didn't write the story. He just found it.
Where did you find it?
On Reddit. It's a website on the internet.
For creative writers.
It's
creative commenters.
Certainly, yes. So people just post. It's like a site aggregator where people just post stuff.
So this has got like tension and there's catharsis then when he eats the Pop-Tarts.
He got revenge.
Well, I think that's going to do it for today, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming, Martin.
I really enjoyed it, guys.